Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. Before I go any further, you can please subscribe down below. Lots of videos going up. What we've been doing, Rob, I, Moments, some of the other moderators, have been going through the channel. Rob's been asking people to ask him in his DMs on videos that he'd like to be seen covered. I've gotten a lot of good feedbacks about how to actually go through exercises when you actually go about disputing, how to go about, not disputing in your head or engaging with the thoughts, and how breaking down the core fear is actually quite separate and engaging with the thoughts as they come, because it does have a little bit of some carryover, and I was definitely confused for like a year on that and definitely was compulsive. Today I have a special video. I have been asked to do this video for a long time. I have been struggling with this for a long time, and I'm going to talk about a few different aspects of it, and it actually doesn't matter truly if it's true body dysmorphic disorder or BDD or some sort of OCD related fear of how you look, hyper obsessiveness about the way your stomach looks, or maybe about your toe or your nose. There is a lot of carryover in trying to figure out if it's particularly, I have to know if it's BDD or I have to know if it's OCD, or if you're just a gen pop person looking at, you have an irrational belief about the way you look. It all crosses over into the same thing. It all comes down to unconditional self and life acceptance. And we're going to talk about all that. So, number one, BDD, body dysmorphic disorder, is very similar to OCD in the way. So, in the terms of what body dysmorphic disorder is, it's someone that is hyper obsessed with a part of their body and they think about it all day long. Seems very similar to OCD. Now, when we have what's called the OCRDs, it's the obsessive compulsive related disorders. So we have compulsive hoarding, like my father was a compulsive hoarder, compulsive spender or shopper, people that can't seem to not do what they do. Another really cool way to look into the OCRD related disorders are people that commit vast amounts of crime, people who have maybe committed 30 murders and stuff like that, serial killers. There is a lot of carryover in this. Usually comes down to the genetics, what they can see. I can't remember the gene now for OCD that they think they've pinned it down to. It's not just genetics, it's environmental factors and stuff like that. But as I talked about before, none of that actually matters. What does matter is your current beliefs on the situation. And yes, the past does matter to an extent in looking into some traditional insight, but that in no way is going to get you recovered from body dysmorphic disorder or OCD. So, that's a great place to start. I also wrote that there is hope. You can recover from this. We know you can recover from obsessive compulsive disorder, body dysmorphic disorder, or if you're just a gen pop with a really irrational belief that we see rampant in the gym, in the fitness industry, which I kind of had to escape from because it was really just laying down those irrational beliefs about my life. What keeps us stuck with the fear of maybe hyper obsessiveness about the way your toe looks or the way your body looks? The fear. The fear is the primary glue that is sticking and keeping the cycle alive. Again, it doesn't really matter if it's true body dysmorphic disorder or if it's obsessive compulsive disorder in between. It all lies over the same exact thing. Having conditional self and conditional life acceptance. So, the compulsive actions that we see in this are simple. Well, they're not simple, but the idea of them in theory is simple. So, checking and comparing. In checking, we have outward checking. So let's say someone like me, I was hyper obsessed with the way I looked. I would constantly be looking in the mirror, constantly checking how I was seeing. This was a major compulsion for me. I wouldn't wear certain clothes because I didn't like the way it felt. It made me feel like I was fat. And again, it doesn't matter what you look like. As I told people with somatic OCD, the sensation itself actually doesn't matter. It's just your belief and your response. Because I was severely overweight in an off season and very, very shredded with very low body fat. And I still had the same exact fears. It didn't matter what I looked like because I only accepted myself conditionally. That's the key. The way that you look, you think in your mind. And I use the example of your nose. I think it's a good example. Let's say your nose is a little crooked. Even if you got your nose fixed with plastic surgery, which I do have a bonus on here talking about why plastic surgery is a major slippery slope for conditional acceptance. A lot of people that have these disorders that go in for this, what do we see anecdotally? It actually doesn't get over their beliefs. You don't need plastic surgery if we're talking about the crooked nose or the crooked toe. It's the belief. You can live with it. Why do we know this? Because there are people that have crooked noses and messed up faces and disfigurements, and they don't have chronic anxiety, shame, or guilt. So the internal compulsion, when I talk about the checking the thermometer, that is gigantic. So we have a gauge. I always use my pencil or my pen. So this is the internal thermometer, okay? It's full at the top and low at the bottom, kind of like my coffee cup. By the way, it's getting close to the holidays, so you know I drink this holiday coffee cup all year round anyway. So, but what happens is you walk around all day thinking to yourself, oh man, does it look better today? Does it look better yesterday? How's it look in this lighting? What does it look like in this filter? You're always internally checking, and people ask me, Nick, I cannot stop doing that. How do I get that down? And that's a great question, because it's usually covered incorrectly. The way how you get the internal automatic rumination to come down, the internal thermometer, is you have to bring the fear down. If you're still highly scared of something, that internal thermometer is going to flicker towards the top all the time. When you're not scared of something, by practicing unconditional self-like other acceptance, moving with exposures and uncertainty, time and patience, this starts to come down. It doesn't need to happen anymore because your brain knows you're not scared. So, number 3, super important. Ways we get caught in the conditional self-acceptance. Now, I was going to talk about plastic surgery now, but we talked about it. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with getting plastic surgery, but it's a very slippery slope for most people. I circled here, slippery slope, because it's a huge slippery slope. A lot of people will say, oh, well, no, I'm just going to do it, and, because of these fears, and it's going to work on my acceptance. It more than likely is not. OCD especially, and body dysmorphic disorder, can always work around this. You might get the surgery to straighten your nose out, and your brain will be like, is it straight enough? It's never going to be enough unless you work at unconditional self and life acceptance. I usually say other when I'm talking about, but there isn't no need for other here. So social media. Wow. Let's talk about how social media has brought out the plethora of conditional acceptance beliefs. We have filters, the right angle, lighting, many photos. I myself suffered with this so much, I would take the same photo in the mirror. So I would do like a flexing photo or something, like any of these bodybuilding ones, you come up here and you're flexing like that, and you'd be like, oh, am I in the right lighting? Like, do my lats look big enough? And you're just like going over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's never enough. I see this so commonly with my friends who don't even have body dysmorphic disorder, or maybe subclinical they do, or obsessive compulsive disorder. This is why this recovery tools fits for the Gen Pop. We have to remember Dr. Ellis's book, The Myth of Self-Esteem, How to Stubbornly Refuse to Make Yourself Miserable About Anything. Yes, anything. These books were not made for the disordered population. They just work very well now that we've seen anecdotally and just thousands of people that have just tried this and gotten a lot better. Some people haven't reached full recovery. Some people are in the middle. Some people are just in the beginning. It's a really cool way to look at life. And you can actually start to accept yourself no matter what happens to you. So this is a completely slippery slope. You don't need to post anything. Again, you can post things that you want. If you want to post pictures of yourself in your bikini, go right ahead. But you have to be very honest with yourself. Very honest with yourself. Am I doing this based on conditional acceptance? Because if you are, you will never ever get unlatched from obsessive compulsive disorder or body dysmorphic disorder. And more than likely, just really bad, deep, irrational fears without these disorders. Because I see this all throughout rampant in the fitness industry. It is so rampant. It's all based on conditional acceptance. We have an idea as a society of what people are supposed to look like. It is so irrational at its basic core. 500 years ago, nobody cared if you had abs. Now, when you have abs, you attach your identity to those abs and say you're a better person. There is so much irrational slew in the way that people look. And it's multiple different reasons, whatever you want to say, cultural, environmental, personal beliefs. It all leads up to one thing, the belief you have right now. So, the gym. Most people go to the gym and spend more time looking at themselves than they actually do working out. That's your prerogative, and that's something that you might want to work on. I was so concerned about the pump, the way I look, the right shirt. I would have to wear a certain shirt on certain days and stuff like that. It is a huge slippery slope for body dysmorphic disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder. Now, let's say you have something with you don't like the way your pecs look, okay? Or maybe you're hyper obsessed about the way your elbow looks. You might have a pointy olecranon. I don't even know why I'm using those words. A pointy elbow. You might only wear long sleeve shirts. No. You have to go towards exposures, feeling the discomfort, going out in situations. You don't want to chase exposures. You don't want to be like, I need to expose myself X amount of times a day to get better. Exposures are very important. We know that. It's very, very good. Moving with uncertainty is important. Getting underneath your irrational fears is important, but sitting with the discomfort is highly important and cannot be missed, because it is an important part, if not the majority, of any of these recovery processes. So let's talk about the disputing and how to get over body dysmorphic disorder or obsessive compulsive disorder and get yourself to recovery. Absence of chronic anxiety, shame, or guilt. You can barely tell that you have a disorder. You're still there, more than likely genetic, but it doesn't affect your life nearly like it does. Time, patience, and ups and downs. Myself, I have been in this world of irrational beliefs based on what I looked like for 15 years, instilling those beliefs. That's not going to go away overnight. It's going to take a lot of discomfort, a lot of irrational beliefs, and guess what? Guess what I did? I gained weight, and then would take pictures of myself to basically make myself look fat. I was chasing exposures. I chased exposures so badly that I knew that it was never going to unlatch unless I worked at unconditional self-acceptance. This, to me, which I am way farther behind than somatic and hyper-awareness, that doesn't really affect my life anymore at all. This, for a year, I was working on kind of behind the hyper-awareness and somatic OCD, but I was trying to agree and prove to myself why it was okay to be like that instead of actually acceptance, which moves me into the internal surrender and why acceptance is not agreement. Now, I've talked about this a lot in other videos, and I will definitely be doing more videos on acceptance versus agreement because it's very easy to get those confused. Rob and I talked about this yesterday on our live. Acceptance does not mean agreement, and I'm going to show you how. Here's the example with the rational belief. I use the nose analogy. Although I don't like my nose, I can stand it. Where does it say in the universe my nose must be straight? Nowhere, only in my silly mind. Tough shit. I love when he says that. But I can work on acceptance. It doesn't mean you have to like a scenario, but it does mean you can work on acceptance. Again, working on unconditional self-life and other acceptance takes time. It's a philosophy. It's a change. It's not something you get. Give me those tips and tricks, Nick, how to get unconditional self-life and other acceptance. I was right there with you. I said the same thing for the better part of a year and a half. Only very recently do I actually start to feel what this means. And how do I know that? How do I know that I'm starting to adopt unconditional self-life and other acceptance? I don't need to prove people wrong anymore. I don't care if people think I'm stupid. I don't have a dire need to prove myself and stuff like that. That is very, very important. Daisy's going crazy out there, of course, per usual, and stuff like that. I'm not always looking in mirrors and car mirrors. I would always look in the mirror, right? You walk by a mirror. A lot of people could probably relate to this if you're a gym lifter. You walk in the mirror and you're like, oh yeah, let me look at myself. I don't need to do that anymore. It's not a thing. Having muscle is cool. I love working out. I'll work out forever. Maybe I get into a car accident and my legs get cut off. Who knows? Maybe I have to go to the gym and in a wheelchair. There's so many things that can happen in life. I wouldn't like those. I like to keep doing what I'm doing. But if something happened in life, I could go about getting under those fears just like I am now and go along in my life. Remember, the plastic surgery is a slippery slope for BDD people. It really, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who have gotten surgery and still have the belief because they're still measuring the internal thermometer. Is it straight enough? Does it look good enough? Is my finger still crooked? Is it still bent? Oh, the surgery, I don't know if it worked. But when you adopt unconditional self and life acceptance, it gets underneath all that and has no framework to attach. That is the key why we talk about it so much. We talk about the philosophies from unconditional self-life and other acceptance. We talk about moving with uncertainty and handling discomfort, Dr. Claire Weeks and Paul David's book on the reading list, and Man's Search for Meaning, as I love because it makes you realize there is much worse situations out there than the ones that you have. Hard to see that right now, easier along the way. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.